at the best prices. He would stride about the shops and the market square, clutching a shopping list provided by a weaner, looking for the best ingredients for the coming week's dinners. He wasn't above a spot of haggling over price, but only when he wasn't wearing his priest's collar, which he felt would give him an unfair advantage at the greengrocer's. But the truth was, most people in Staincross Minster recognised the handsome priest, who was often in the news, both local and national. Having deliberately left worldly concerns behind for a quiet life, Max found that the noisy world sought him out, despite his best attempts at obscurity. There had even been talk of a Netflix documentary of his life, which, had he come to hear of it, would have horrified him. Thinking that a small parish priest might be stretched for cash at the best of times, the shop owners and farmers often let Max think he had won the skirmish over the last of the summer's leeks or cabbages. Everyone wished him well, and Max was known as a good man to have in one's corner. But before a weaner set Max loose in the marketplace while she went to buy yarn and supplies for Goddess spell, they would have lunch with a pint and a glass of wine at the White Hart. Sometimes they'd meet up with friends for lunch, but more often they'd find a quiet corner of the pub and catch up on each other's doings throughout the previous week. It was their version of date day, a Monday, the only day of the week a clergyman could call his own. Mrs. Hooser, their housekeeper, would mind their son Owen and insist they take their time getting back. Max could only wonder at his good fortune. Not long after he had taken up his position as vicar of St. Edwald's, he had recognised his growing attraction to a weaner, even as it complicated his investigation into the murders that winter at Chedrow Castle. Now here they were, many seasons later, married and with a small child they both adored. Max tried to shake off the superstition that overtook him when things were going too well. It was no doubt a leftover from his MI5 days, when it had been drilled into him that there was no such thing as good luck, only good planning, and mere brief lulls in the global storms generated by forces beyond his or anyone's control. Max liked to spend his day off away from his parish in Nethermonkslip whenever possible. Otherwise, parishioners had a way of popping in for a chat, and once dug in by the fireplace with their cares and worries and a nice cuppa, were difficult to remove. Max loved his calling, and he loved all the members of his flock, some perhaps more than others. He just found them all easier to love after a day away from them and their problems, most of which could have waited until Tuesday. But just as he and a weaner were getting ready to leave for the market that Monday morning, the vicarage phone rang, and in Max's position, ignoring the ring was never an option. The patrician voice at the other end of the Bakelite phone carried bad news and conveyed an intriguing problem. Even before the voice identified itself, Max recognized it as belonging to the principal of St. Luke's, Max undergraduate college at Oxford. "Had you heard, Max?" asked Professor Sir Colin Windmill in the rich, commanding tones of a man born to wealth and leadership. "Our chaplain has passed away." "Oh, no, not Ace Graybill." Max remembered the chaplain well, although it had been years since Max had matriculated at St. Luke's College. The Reverend Dr. Asserton Graybill, M.A. D.Phil. Diptheol, Oxon, was legendary in his way, part of the warp and woof of the ancient college after so many years as the spiritual guide for thousands of students. Perhaps more shoulder to cry on than guide, thought Max. Nonetheless, he had been responsible in some way for Max's leaving MI5 to study for the priesthood, a move Max had never regretted. For one thing, he doubted he would have survived the next car bomb, which surely would have been aimed at him. "I'm so very sorry to hear this," he said to the principal. Even though Ace must have been nearing the end of his useful life, there was always hope that people as good as he would be granted a reprieve. And Ace, in Max's memory, had been one of the very good ones. Was it his heart? "Only in a manner of speaking." Professor Sir Colin Windmill